Today on Locked On Rockies, the trade deadline has come and gone, and while the Rockies did stuff, made some moves, I can't help but asking, that's it?
You are Locked On Rockies, your daily Colorado Rockies podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Rock on Rockies fans, welcome into the Locked On Rockies podcast for the first day of August. Can you believe that? The first day of August here in the year 2025. I'm your host of the Locked On Rockies podcast, Paul Holden, bringing you your daily Colorado Rockies talk right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where you can find your team every day. And if your team is the Colorado Rockies, guess what? You're in the right spot, because that's what we do around here each and every day, free and streaming on your favorite streaming services, bringing you your daily Colorado Rockies talk right here on those streaming services and on the Locked On Rockies YouTube channel, where you can be part of the show. You can fire off your Rockies hot takes. You can let me know what's on your mind when it comes to the Colorado Rockies. And today, well, of course, there's only one thing really to talk about on the show today: trade deadline reactions. We'll read your reactions from social media and, of course, on the Locked On Rockies YouTube comments section. And I don't want to go full negative right out the gate and completely ignore the fact that the Rockies did actually do stuff at the deadline here. But when a team like the Twins, and again, there could be difference in market. We're going to dive into all of this. We'll dive into all this in just a second. But when you see a team like the Twins in a completely different spot than the Rockies make as many moves as they did, and there's, and I'm not saying you mimic it one for one. I just wonder if, can we sit there and say the market was the question mark, or was it the Rockies value, how much the Rockies value their players and value that team control? We'll dive into all that and more on today's episode of Locked On Rockies. Before we dive into everything, got to let you know that today's episode is brought to you by 5 Hour Energy Transfusion. Go to 5hourenergy.com today and use promo code LOCKEDONGolf to receive 20% off your order. Only valid through September 30th. Order transfusion-flavored 5-hour energy shots today. So the trade deadline has passed. The Rockies make 3 deals, 2 of which with the New York Yankees, sending they send a few of their guys, the guys that we thought were going to be traded. Ryan McMahon, Tyler Kinley, and Jake Bird all traded here at the deadline. And it's, the Rockies get a handful of the Yankees' top 30 prospects in this time. Including here, let's read a little bit from Thomas Harding's Rockies acquire second baseman Riggio and left-handed pitcher Shields from Yanks in deal for Bird. Riggio, a 23, a fourth-round pick in the 2023 MLB draft out of Oklahoma State, and Shields, 26, a non-drafted free agent who signed in 23 and has progressed quickly after a collegiate career at Massachusetts and George Mason. We're at Double-A Somerset. So let's see. Schmidt believes the Rockies, in a lengthy rebuild that has included 200-plus lost seasons and a 28-80 mark so far in 2025, increased talent and competition. We added 2 left-handers, right-handers, and a guy that has a chance to be an offensive second baseman, Schmidt said. We like what all 4 guys bring. In the days leading to the trade deadline, teams targeted the youth in the Rockies bullpen, especially rookie right-handed closer Seth Halverson and second-year righty Victor Vodnik. I had a high ask for those guys, Vodnik and Halverson, Schmidt said. We think there's still a lot of upside to them. We've had Victor the last 2 years after a trade with the Braves at the 23 deadline, and he's made progress. We've had Halverson, a 7th-round pick in 23 for just the last year, really. The only hesitation here, and we'll dive more into this. Do Victor Vodnik and Seth Halverson have upside, and can they contribute to the Rockies? And is it great to watch them come out and throw 100 miles an hour? Absolutely. But are they going to be on the next playoff team? Are they going to be a part of the next successful Colorado Rockies team? And if the answer to that question is no, and you were getting high asks, you were getting good deals, you were getting exciting and enticing deals for these guys, I think that's a mistake. Again, these guys are, they certainly have upside and the potential to contribute, but at the same time, it ever since I've talked, we had Connor on the show and I talked to a few people. It's about the timeline. It's about how do things line up. It's about who is going to be a part of this puzzle piece down the line. And for the Rockies to have pieces that they know are not going to be a part of it, mixed with some of these guys, the Halversons and the Vodniks, who are possible, certainly, but at the same time, there's a possibility of them not being a part of this next step, of this next possible window. I think you misstepped there. I think, again, you can sit there and be positive and be happy about the fact that the Rockies are adding some guys. They added some pitchers. They added a guy that might be able to do some damage at altitude and be an offensive threat at second base. But you're also sitting there and you're saying, that's all? At least I am. Maybe I don't know if I'm being too overly critical here, and I'm not celebrating the fact enough that the Rockies did make 3 moves. The Rockies did bring guys in. The Rockies did make adjustments. We can't sit here and say the Colorado Rockies did nothing at the trade deadline. That's not true. They've shed a lot of money. They brought in guys into the farm system. They added pitchers into the system. They did things here. They made moves, and as Bill Schmidt tells Thomas Harding, they're confident in their moves. Obviously, he's going to say that. But at the same time, my question is, was it the Rockies' valuation and thinking that they were going to sit and think that, okay, these guys are going to be a factor? Or was it the fact that the market for Rockies players didn't really exist? Every team wants middle relievers, but why? So why did Herget not get moved? Like what there had to have been some discussions there. And if you have teams that are interested in it, why didn't you take that deal? And again, this is a question of if those deals existed. I don't have insider knowledge. I'm not in the clubhouse. I don't have a direct connection to any of the team here. But I'm just asking the question of, was it you guys really believe that this sets you up and this is enough to help add in for the future of the Colorado Rockies? Or was it a situation where you're sitting there and saying, we think that these guys are better or good or more than or worth more than what they're getting and they're asking for? But that just seems to fall flat to me as an argument when you're looking at the season that the Rockies are having. When you're facing the actual fact and the truth of the matter here, which is the Rockies are in a really, really, really tough spot. And I just don't think that when you look at the Twins and they're a team that was kind of middling, right around the middle ground, and being mediocre and being 500 in baseball doesn't help you. It doesn't make you, it doesn't fix things. It doesn't make you it's really not a great thing for your organization to just be a middling team. So why wasn't the response to this, a full teardown? Because again, you can sit there and say, why didn't they trade Marquez? But the injury and the performance and stuff. But it is true, like there wasn't any market for German Marquez. You're willing to trade Kinley there for a 14th rounder for a flyer guy for a 1-for-1. If you were willing to move Tyler Kinley for a deal like that, you weren't willing to move any of the other guys that you had, especially some of these veteran guys for something similar, especially guys that are going to walk at the end of the year. German Marquez is not coming back. There's just no possible way he would want to re-sign with the Colorado Rockies at this point and at this stage of his career and where he's at, unless the Rockies offer him oodles of money, and have already told him that. I guess this is the disappointment is I just think we're starting to see some warning signs of just like, while change is happening, it's kind of seems like it might be surface level at its core at its fundamental, at its most, at the deeper layers, it's still the same old Rockies, which again kind of makes me feel bad for negating the fact that the Rockies got top 30 prospects from the Yankees farm system. The Rockies made the moves. They didn't do nothing. I just was kind of hoping to see that this trade deadline would actually be an example of doing something different, being super aggressive at the deadline, selling big, really talking about it is time to move on from some of this stuff. It is time to move on from some of these players. It is time to move on from the roster construction that has not led to success this year and has been mediocre to poor or to bad for a while now. So I'm curious, what are your thoughts here? What are your reactions? Let me know in the Locked On Rockies YouTube comment section. We'll also read some of your thoughts from Twitter coming up next here on today's episode of Locked On Rockies. Before we do that, though, got to tell you about the folks that help make this show possible, and that includes 5-Hour Energy Transfusion, because it's time to turn up and fuel up with 5-Hour Energy Transfusion. It brings the bold grape, ginger, and lime flavor of your favorite golf drink, minus the alcohol, into a quick, energizing shot. Whether you're sinking birdies or just making memories with friends, this one's a hole-in-one for your energy game. Let's be honest, some days on the course or off it, you just need that extra boost to stay sharp and energized, especially as you're rocking and rolling through a Colorado summer. It's hot out there, and as you're going through the middle of a midday golf round, you might need something a little refreshing and to keep you going without the buzz and the after effects of a little bit of that midday enjoyment. Well, that is what 5-Hour Energy Transfusion is all about. And it's just like golf, because golf is all about good times with good people and good flavors, of course. The grape ginger lime flavor gives you the best parts of your clubhouse go-to without chasing down the bev cart. If you go to 5hourenergy.com today, that is the number 5, ourenergy.com. You can use the promo code LOCKEDONGOLF. That's promo code LOCKEDONGOLF to receive 20% off your order. This offer is only valid until September 30th on one order and cannot be used with other promotions. The code is not good on subscription orders. Back at it here for segment number 2 of today's episode of Locked On Rockies, free and streaming on your favorite streaming services, bringing you your daily Colorado Rockies talk right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where you can find your team every day. Shout outs to all of you tuning in. Shout outs to all of my everydayers out there and the folks that were letting me know what they thought. We'll get to some of your comments here in just a moment. But before we do, let's go back here to get some more comments from Bill Schmidt in Thomas Harding's piece here. Rocks acquire second base Riggio, left-handed pitcher Shields from Yanks, and deal from Bird. This is from, of course, the trade deadline here. Let's see. Schmidt said Bird helped the Rockies by attracting a pair of prospects and should help the Yankees. Jake did a good job here, very competitive with the sinker and the slider, and he had no fear of Coors Field, Schmidt said. You look at the fact he was a senior sign out of UCLA, and he made it to this point, and to this point has had a very successful career. He filled a lot of roles. He could be a multiple inning reliever. He could pitch late in the game for you. He'd give you 3-4 innings if he had to. One thing about Jake was he was never afraid to take the ball. I wish nothing but the best for him. Last year in his first full pro season, the lively left-handed hitting Riggio. And this is the thing I think I've seen about him. It seems like there is a lot of energy, the possible energy in this bat. There's a lot of possible fun with this bat if it can translate here and adjust to the major league level. Riggio batted .221 at High A Hudson Valley, but he flashed potential with 11 home runs and 27 stolen bases in 106 games. You know I'm a big fan of base stealing, and you know I'm a fan of aggressive base running. That's always something that I like to see. Riggio began the 2025 season on the injured list and posted a 1.033 OPS with 6 home runs, 4 doubles, and 1 triple for Hudson Valley. After joining Somerset, Riggio played 40 games and slashed .261, 335, 542 with 11 home runs, 28 RBI, 10 doubles, and 7 stolen bases. I go back to when Rock Riggio played at Thousand Oaks High School with A's infielder Jack Wilson and Max Muncy before he went to Oklahoma State, Schmidt said. He's always been a competitor. There's a toughness to him. He's looking to beat you. You're looking at an offensive second baseman. He's not a big guy, listed at 5'9", 180 pounds, but he's got 11 home runs and an OPS over 900. He's having a really good year. Riggio adds organizational depth at second base with switch hitting Adiel Amador, who has had his major league stints the last 2 seasons playing at AAA Albuquerque. That's what it's all about. Competition, said Schmidt said. And so this is kind of my thing and my one of my main things here, and I think something that might make me a little bit different than other Rockies fans is the fact that I wanted to see more of this. I think the Rockies need to be way more aggressive when it comes to adding pieces, offensive pieces, and players that can contribute on the offensive side of the ball. If you're an everydayer, you know that this isn't anything different in terms of how I feel about this. But these are the type of things that I am excited to hear. You know, a guy that's got some a little bit of pop, the ability to hit the ball over the wall, and the ability to steal bases. And it sounds like if it's able to pan out, he's kind of got a similar profile to maybe a Jordan Beck. Hunter Goodman might be a good example. We're not seeing as many stolen bases there, but if the Rockies are able to, build up some guys that kind of have that Jordan Beck profile, I'm not going to be too opposed to that. And I would have, the one thing I think too that might have been a little bit more refreshing to see, or a little bit not refreshing, but ideal to see for the Rockies at the deadline this year would have been some guys maybe closer to major league ready. But again, it kind of goes back to my the market question and where the Rockies were at. So I think kind of one of my other takeaways here from the deadline is, again, pitching, always great, always something, that not only you need, but everybody needs. It's not just the Rockies who are going to be people looking to be, adding pitching or needing pitching. Everyone always needs pitching forever and always. And we know the Rockies are no stranger in that, especially with the, the struggles to attract people to sign here as free agents. So you got to be aggressive, and you got to make sure that when when you're in the trade deadline, you do got to have to emphasize the pitching. It's kind of just the nature of the beast for the Rockies. But I would have liked to see a little bit more on terms of adding some potential bats in here, and specifically guys that, when you're looking at their profiles, when you're looking at what makes them, a top prospect or something like that, is their offensive abilities. I really truly think that one of the biggest flaws is the Rockies not having a very, very dangerous power hitter, someone that can be someone that hits for power, hits for extra bases, slugs, and puts the fear in some pitchers a little bit. I miss the old lineups of having multiple guys that will hit 25, 30 home runs, stuff like that, guys that are going to be big time offensive threats. And unfortunately, we're just not, that's just not where we don't see a lot of that with the Rockies right now. Certainly some interesting cases, and certainly some guys that can be, can provide some thump and really do it. But I'm talking about guys that really, really intimidate when it comes to their offensive abilities. That the Rockies need to have game changers on offense to really, really take that step to the next level. I do think that really, truly is going to be the thing that's going to be the reason the Rockies will win games and get more competitive when their offense is able to perform and actually hang with some of this major league pitching and actually be competitive in these games, like we've seen glimpses of. But okay, let's read a little bit more here about Shields. Shields missed the first 2 months of the season with a hip ailment from last year. Since becoming active, he has 42 strikeouts against 14 walks. That's a nice little ratio. And 35 2/3 innings over 9 starts at 4 levels. Shields logged 26 strikeouts against 10 walks and 23rd 2/3 innings over 5 starts for Somerset. Our pro scouts who cover minor league baseball came upon him and said, hey, this guy, even though he's a little older, has a good arm. He's starting, and if he has to, he can go to the bullpen. Anytime any team can add left-handed pitching, which we know the Rockies literally have been running a bullpen and have not even had any left-handed pitching at all for, I believe, was it that whole last series, and maybe a little bit for beyond that, a little bit more, even deeper than that. So again, I think Schmidt here is anytime any team can add left-handed pitching, it's good. And we got two left-handers, Herring and Shields, in these trades with the Yankees. So there's the Schmidt spin on it. There's the coverage there from Thomas Harding as well. So I don't know. The question too with this is it's up to the Rockies to make these guys into special players, right? It's up to the Rockies now to make them into the major leaguers they hope to be. So it goes deeper than just the trade and the guys that they got. It also now goes to how successful the Rockies be and in addressing some of the concerns, some of the issues that these guys might be facing, and get them ready to rock and ready to rumble for being major league ball players. All right, let's read your thoughts, your comments, and more from the trade deadline. Put a bow on it and get ready for more Rockies baseball. Now that the trade deadline's over, it's all about avoiding that dreaded worst team ever. More coming up next. Before we do that, got to tell you about some of the folks that help make this show possible, and that includes Gameday Hue. Today's episode is brought to you by Gameday Hue, and so is this hat I'm wearing. For Rockies fans like me, really fans of any sport, anything, this one hits the mark. Gameday Hue makes clean, no-logo gear with team-inspired colorways for every pro and college fan base. Maybe you got someone that doesn't like wearing a big old logo on their head, looking for something sleek, a little bit more easy, a little bit more simple. Gameday Hue's got you covered because it's all about letting your colors speak for you. No giant logos, just smart, versatile style that works on game day, on the course, or anywhere in between. Like I said, this was perfect not only for the golf course, but on the go. Gets nice little shade. And as you're taking on the trails there in Colorado, breathable, got lots of ventilation in the top, makes it for a perfect hat to wear wherever you are going. You can wear it to tailgates, tee times, or just out running errands, and you're going to get compliments on it. And the good news is it's not just hats. Check out their split shade gloves made for the golf course, or the perfect gift for the fan who has everything. Right now, you can get 15% off with code MLB15 at GamedayHue.com. That's GamedayHue.com. The code even stacks on bundled deals, so now's the time to load up. Let your colors talk, because colors speak louder than words. That's GamedayHue.com, code MLB 15. Back at it here on the Locked On Rockies podcast, bringing it to a close here on the Locked On Rockies podcast. Trade deadline reaction. And I read from the Locked On Rockies Twitter here. And let's see here. Let's go here. Dre says, I honestly was fairly happy with this deadline, other than not dealing Herget. That one's interesting. That somebody had to have been interested in Herget. If you, again, like I said earlier, if you were willing to do that 1-for-1 swap with Kinley, there wasn't a 1-for-1 swap or another similar type of swap that you couldn't have done with Herget, who's been pretty decent and a solid piece to add, even at least, add another left-handed pitcher into the mix, add another, take a flyer on a guy for a hit. I don't for a batter. I don't know. Eric says, I would give the Rockies a B- or C. Yes, they were able to make a few trades, but they could have dealt Jimmy Herget, Victor Vodnik, South Halverson, and more. Dinger Muse says, terrible. The moves we made were fine. They weren't bad, but they don't get me excited whatsoever. The Padres gave up the number 3 prospect for Mason Miller. Something like that would have made a ton of sense for Halverson/Vodnik. Stack assets for 2027 plus. Instead, meh. That's kind of my thing. And I said this in the yesterday's episode. This should be a moment. This whole season, everything about this season, from the front office down, this should be the season where we point out and say, this is where they hit rock bottom. This is where they made the adjustments. This is where they went all in on rebuilding. This is where we can point and say, this guy came from this trade. This guy. We should be able to point to this year, not only for the failures and for the fact that it was a massive disappointment, and the Rockies really, really, in terms of wins and losses, really stunk it up. I just don't know if we can sit here and say that the Rockies did the most this trade deadline to put themselves in the best position for 2027 and beyond, as was mentioned in the comment there. I just don't think that this is I just have a hard time believing that this was all the Rockies could do. This was all the Rockies all the Rockies could get done, and for them sitting there and thinking that they got they maximized the trade deadline. They maximized what they could do. They maximized the possibilities. I just don't know if I don't know if I really, and maybe it's just because I'm feeling pretty jaded and pretty down and pretty over trusting the Rockies organization and trusting the Rockies, the Rockies ability to develop players and such. But I think that is something that I kind of, there still are a couple of pieces, players on this team that even when, again, it's course there's just look at the numbers, as my mic is really not working with me today. The stats don't lie for certain things, right? The stats tell the tale, and that will be a huge factor for it, right? There's really not a lot of guys that you look and you have to, and because of what they're putting up this year, they're saying, wow, I got to make a deal for this guy. I got to get this guy. He's going to be the reason why we make it to the World Series and take down a really good team. This is the guy that's going to be the championship, the championship difference. But I don't know. I just kind of, I know I'm rehashing it, but I just feel like there were so many relievers going. There were so many teams that were moving multiple guys. There were so many teams that were willing to really strip down. And the Rockies didn't do that. Someone's burner account thinks that when because I basically asked, my question was, were the Rockies and their valuation of the players the reason that there wasn't as many deals, or was it there wasn't much of a Rockies market for Rockies players? And someone's burner account says, my guess is the latter, meaning the Rockies, not much of the market there. And that very well could be the case. But the market was that big for Twins players, for Orioles players, for some of these other clubs that really made a lot of moves. And again, the answer easily could be yes. Look at the stats, look at the numbers. It's right there. Just look at it. But I guess I was just hoping that this moment would be a defining prove it moment for the Rockies front office. And I think in their minds, they're sitting there saying, we did just enough. You can't sit there and say that we didn't do anything, because that's not true. We moved 3 guys. We brought in a bunch of arms. We got top 30 prospects from the Yankees. We were engaged in trade talks. We did make a change. And credit where credit is due there. But at the same time, I don't think this was a moment that you sit there and you say as Rockies fans, wow, I'm ready for the future. Wow, this team is really ramping up for 2027. Wow, this team is really going to be a factor here a couple of years down the line. I don't think that's I don't think that's the takeaway that you can have from this trade deadline for the Rockies. You can sit there and you say, hey, they traded McMahon, got stuff in return, shed the contract. Great. Hey, they moved a couple of guys from the bullpen. Young arms are going to get some chance, more chances here. The Rockies are going to go a little younger in some areas. Cool, great. But do you sit there and say, this team is in a better spot to be competitive in 2027 because of the moves they made today? And I don't think the answer to that is a resounding yes. And it's not so simple as just saying, oh, if they would have done more, they would have been in a better position. I can't sit there and say that, but it at least would confirm that this team is trying to be aggressive in actually doing the rebuild. Because again, I don't sit here and say that the Rockies while they can say they're rebuilding as much as they want, my confidence in them to actually be successful in doing this is still low. It's still they still have to prove it to, and that's going to take a lot of time. It's going to take a lot of time to get to the point where I can sit there and say that I'm confident in what the Rockies are doing and the direction they're going. Because again, I'm not down on everything. I'm not saying that what they did at this year at the deadline was bad. I'm just underwhelmed. And the needle hasn't moved for me in terms of believing that big change and big difference and newness, as weird of a word that might be to use there, is coming to the Colorado Rockies. Let me know what your reactions are in the Locked On Rockies YouTube comment section. Fire off your trade deadline reactions and more. Let me know what's on your mind when it comes to the Colorado Rockies, because that is going to do it for us today. We'll be reacting to the Pirates series on Monday. Skeens at Coors. That's going to be a fun one, probably for the Pittsburgh Pirates fans more than us. But Skeens has kind of had some Rockies luck where he can be doing what, he's great, but the offense doesn't always back him up. We'll see what happens with Rockies Pirates, as both of these teams making some trades and looking a little different going into this series. Thank you again so much for making us your first listen of the day. For your second listen of the day, go check out Locked On MLB and Locked On MLB Game Night. And if you need more Colorado sports coverage, Locked On Broncos, Avalanche, Nuggets, and Buffs, all free and streaming on your favorite streaming services. Until next time, I'm Paul Holden saying so long from the Locked On Rockies podcast.